All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Post Game Podcast, a podcast where I'm talking to former athletes about life after sports, what they're up to in business, entrepreneurship, and much more. Today's guest is a former college volleyball player at LIU Brooklyn and is just getting started in his career after sports. He's building a platform called UnJerseyed, a personal development brand for former athletes, talking a lot about that transition out of sports into the next chapter. His name is Christopher Knowles. So, Chris, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you taking the time. A little bit of what he talks about are how he built a social media following around volleyball training, which he sold, and why he thinks he might have sold it a little bit too early. How college athletes can be prepping for life after the game and that transition away from sports. And a little bit about how social media is impacting how younger athletes interact with employers and how they might be thinking about work going forward. So thanks again for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Would appreciate if you checked out the newsletter on Beehive. I'll have that link in the show notes. Also, feel free to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify. Just helps other people find the show as well. So thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in as we head into the end of the year here. Christmas coming up, New Year, 2026. Good time to look back on the previous year and get it going for the next year. With all that said, please enjoy this conversation with Christopher Knowles. All right, brother. We're live here with Chris Knowles. Cool, man. This will be fun. You're just kind of hearing a little bit, like I was saying, about your volleyball background. You're the first volleyball player I've had on here for what that is worth.
Awesome.
And so that'll be cool. Just kind of hear about that background and what led you into starting a few different things that you've been involved in. Like, it seems like you've got this entrepreneurial spirit a little bit, and just excited to hear about it. So thanks, man.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having on.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to kind of share my story a little bit. I always love making content and pushing out messages to people that'll help. So yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
There you go. All right, well let's do it. So first, with your volleyball background. So I was looking on the website for LIU Brooklyn. You're 6'7".
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
I'm standing up right now, but you can't tell how tall, but yeah.
I was going to say, you can never tell through a screen, but 6'7" caters towards, I guess, basketball, or in your case, volleyball. So what was your background getting involved in that and then getting to the schools that you did?
For sure, yeah. Well, so I'm a taller guy. My dad is 6'7" too, so that's where I get the height from. And it makes sense when people meet him. He's like, "Oh, that's where you get the height from." But yeah, so I grew up my entire life, kind of going all the way back. I grew up my entire life being an athlete. My mom has been a runner since I could remember. She has her own kind of like friend group that runs a ton. And my dad played college basketball at UTSA and then Cal Poly SLO, so like 2 and 2. And then he went overseas and played in Europe in places like Belgium, Germany, Australia, to play pro basketball overseas. And have a couple of cool stories from him when he did that back in the day. So like sports has really always been a part of my life. And I think what I think was really like truly a blessing, and I think honestly, like the best way to do it with young kids was how my parents did it with me, was if I found a sport and I liked it, they were all in. And then if I wanted to change sports, they threw away the gear and restarted with the next sport. So for me as a kid, it was very much like basketball, soccer. I did t-ball all the way up until like machine pitch. I did like flag football. I never did contact football. My brother did contact. But yeah, so like sports has always been a part of my life. I think a lot of the best lessons that I've learned just as a person now, I think has always came from some kind of sports experience. And it's really, truly like just an incredible thing for any young kid to get in and to obviously continue to the college level. Like you said, the longer you go, the more you learn from it. But yeah, so then heading into high school, I was playing basketball kind of and volleyball at the same time. But how I really got into volleyball, my dad has been playing on the same beach for the last like almost 30 years, like before I was even on this earth. So I grew up kind of getting dragged to Saturday morning volleyball with him at 7 a.m. You know, as a kid, you don't want to get up that early, but I had the rough life of having to go to the beach every Saturday, you know, so tough upbringing. But yeah, so I kind of, that was always the seed that was planted within me, watching him play volleyball with his friends, and it was always such a good time. So coming into high school, I kind of just decided to like try it. I was like, why not like just go do like this beach volleyball camp, like see how it goes. And I absolutely loved it from the jump. Like I just kind of had that innate feeling that I'm like, this is my sport. This is what I've been looking for all this time, you know? So my basketball skills were slowly going down and my volleyball skills were rapidly going up. So I'm like, I'm going to ride this upturn. Went into high school, played all 4 years of varsity, which was actually a funny story because my freshman year, I'd only been playing volleyball for like a couple of years. And I went up to the varsity coach and was like, hey, can I just like try out with the varsity team? Like the people trying out for varsity, like older kids. And if I'm like not good, you could just send me back down. He's like, okay. And I played good and I got on varsity as a freshman. So that was pretty, I think, confidence inducing of like, oh, I actually can do this. I actually am good and all of these different things. Ended up being a first team All-American in high school out of my senior year. And I was like our conference like player of the year. Don't really care about accolades like that, you know, like it's just a name on a paper to me. But so out of high school, I committed to this place called McKendree University in Illinois, the Bearcats. Spent a year there, but the main reason I went there was not by any means because of the campus or any of the education. I mainly went because they were very much like a chip on the shoulder team. And that's how I've always been, especially with my volleyball career. I was always playing with something to prove, right? I always had some kind of motivation from a coach that told me I like wasn't good enough or got cut from this other team or benched one day. Like I've always been that kind of person that kind of uses that anger as motivation, not like the wanting to be great. It's more to prove other people wrong, that kind of side of it. And they were the exact same way. So I loved it. I wanted to go there. I was really pitched on the idea that I would play right away, or there's a very high chance I would. Didn't really get that opportunity in moments I really felt like I should have got that opportunity. I guess as most athletes probably go through that of you're recruited in one story and the actual story that happens is completely different. So I kind of went through that my freshman year, but within that, I was sitting in my dorm room, kind of like moping to myself about how I wasn't playing and like this sucks and all this stuff. And I was in my dorm room on YouTube and this video kind of just popped up. And it said, it was by this guy named Ed Milet, and it was how to control your mind to get anything you want. So me as an 18-year-old kid lost in life and having no idea what I want to do anymore, that was obviously very enticing. So I watched that video and was just blown away by the amount of information and the knowledge and the value that I got in a lot of really good things that I think just came from one video that I was like, I want to watch more, right? I was hooked from the jump. So that led into personal, like what I later learned was personal development. And like this guy was an entrepreneur. I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. Like obviously, you know, people run businesses, but like what's an entrepreneur? You don't really hear about that most often. So dropped out of McKendree to kind of pursue entrepreneurship, see what I wanted to do there. And try to do social media marketing. I was working with a gym to run their ads. I did door to door. I did like, what's it called? Short-term rentals with like Airbnb and stuff like that. None of them worked until, you'll probably ask me about this later, the volleyball growth coach page, which I built. But within building that, I kind of was like a little bit unsettled. I was like, I really want to finish my career and at least play. You know, I played 8 years up until that point, and the whole goal was to play in college and nothing else. And I hadn't done that yet. So through building that page, I was kind of like, I should go back and at least play and try, right? And try it out at least one more time. If I don't play, I gave it my all, right? That's something that I've always kind of learned from my dad, but it's always been instilled in me is like, if you give your all, that's all you can do, right? And whatever comes from that is whatever comes from that. So kind of started reaching out to a lot of my old high school and club teammates who I knew were in the Division I level, just kind of networking with them, honestly, of like, hey, do you guys need an opposite? I'm left-handed, so I play right side. And most people don't know what opposite is, but yeah, exactly. So I played right side hitter essentially. And so I was kind of just texting people. I'm like, hey, this guy at BYU, this guy at GCU, this guy at Concordia Irvine. I'm like, hey, like, do you guys need an opposite? Just kind of like, because they know how I play. It's the best marketing is someone else telling that person about you, you know? So connected with my old setter who was at LIU Brooklyn. and they were like, hey, we literally need an oppo, like ours is like essentially leaving, or like we don't really have a true right side. And so when I hear that, I'm like, okay, bingo, like I got to go there, right? So got committed there. Had to actually do a semester of JUCO before going back to D1, because in that year I took off my, like, obviously I was like behind on my credits. So I had to go to JUCO for a semester, which was awesome in so many different ways. But then this past year went to LIU Brooklyn, played for the full year, started out from the gate, got to kind of live out that dream of finally playing in college. And then I was like, cool, I did it. I'm done. Like that was all I wanted to do. I came, I did it. And so, yeah, so then left that. And then now that's kind of the path that I'm on now.
Cool, man. Cool. That's it's a good lesson from your dad too, I think, right? It's like,
oh yeah,
you start something, you got to finish it. So,
yeah.
so that's great. And it sounds like an awesome volleyball career along the way. How about for that? So yeah, you touched on it for a second, the volleyball social media page. Like you built that up to 247,000 followers, I think. Was that on Instagram or was that across different platforms? Like what did that look like?
So yeah, so it was combined with TikTok and Instagram. I was kind of posting stuff on YouTube as far as like long form content like this, like podcasts of people, and just kind of like my own kind of, I would say, like educational pieces of like different skill based stuff. But yeah, so the 247 was across TikTok and Instagram, but the brunt of it was on Instagram with 147, and TikTok I think got to like 95 something, whatever the math is on that. But I was posting the same stuff. It wasn't like I was posting something different on both platforms. But yeah, so essentially where kind of VGC came from, or Volleyball Growth Coach, like I said, I was trying different things in this year off after McKendree. I'm like, nothing's really hitting, nothing's really working, or a lot of it like took a lot of time investment, not really getting much out of it. And I think I've always had a good innate feeling of like looking at the long term of like, not how is this costing me now, but like, how do I actually grow this and what will that cost, right? A lot of the social media marketing was like a lot of upfront time investment, traveling, shooting, editing, right, for just a fixed price. So with every single thing I did before going into it, or at least during it, I would always look at, okay, like how do I actually grow this? Like, how do I scale this? How do I leverage different things? And if those things weren't really working, I moved on to the next thing. But so within doing this thing and then that thing and then that thing, I kind of just was like, okay, like I'm missing a piece here. Like there's obviously something missing in like my skills or my knowledge or whatever it might be. And so I've always like gone back to YouTube for like learning of like, okay, I have a gap, like look it up on YouTube. Like I've learned more from YouTube than I have from any schooling in my entire life. Probably, I would argue that to the day I got. But so essentially on YouTube, I just kept watching these videos of people, and everyone just kind of kept saying, you have to start with like what you know, like the number one rule of entrepreneurship is like starting with what you have. Right. So then I'm kind of taken back. I'm like, okay, like, well, what do I have? Right. At the time I was 18, 19, maybe. I'm like, I don't really have that much experience. I was like, but what I do have is almost a decade of volleyball experience. Right. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to run with that. I'm going to make an Instagram page centered around educating younger volleyball players on essentially how to reach the college level. Because I had done it. Right. I had reached the D1 level like every kid imagines when they're just starting out in the sport. So I kind of started with that. I essentially just started really just posting videos of me in my bedroom and my desk and just kind of spewing knowledge essentially of like, hey, this is how you serve better. That was a video, right? And this is how you pass better, and just breaking down each innate skill set, but also the mindset behind it, and also like recruiting advice, like the whole nine of like everything I'd learned in that 8 to 9 year span of at the time in my volleyball career. And it did really well. I think it grew pretty good kind of at the beginning ish. It was like very slow growth, but it was enough to be like, hey, this is actually working. And all I was doing at the start was just content. Like I didn't have an offer or a product or service or nothing. Like it was strictly just like, I'm going to build up this page and see what happens. So I'm just kind of like posting videos in my room, and it's just like kind of like this of just like the talking head videos. And then around that time, there was a guy that reached out to me that was like, hey, I can do these like really cool like sports animations for you, like with Adobe After Effects. And like he was like, can I make you a video? You post it, see how it goes, and then if you love it, you can pay me in to make more videos. And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds cool, man. I'm at like, I think at the time I was at like 20 something thousand followers. And so that's like a lot for someone who has like never seen more than 1,000 followers on their page, right? So I was like, yeah, sure. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I get a free animation. It flops. So what, right? He makes this animation. You could probably still find it on the page. Makes this animation. It's like a little black and white screen, just this tiny little glowing volleyball court. And it's like a 5-second video. And it got like 1 million views and absolutely blew up. I posted the video. I went to bed and woke up the next day and had like 49,000 followers like overnight. And I was like, whoa, that obviously hit, right? So this is around like month 7 of having the account, month 6 maybe. So I grew to that size and within 9 months, so less than a year. But that video posted, I'm like, wow, like that blew up. And I told the guy, I'm like, hey man, you got to make me more videos because that did really well. And he made me like 3 or 5 more. And then another one got essentially the page to reach 19 million accounts. Like I have a screenshot of it. Like VGC itself reached like 19 million accounts. And it was like, if you look at the analytics on Instagram, I reached like 99.1% non-followers. And it was like 0.9 of my actual followers. So that was insane. And then literally within like a couple months, I shot from like 47,000 to like 98,000. And there was like this other kind of brand page in the volleyball space called like No Easy Buckets. And they were like the most known brand in the volleyball space. Like you talk to any volleyball player, be like, what's the Instagram brand? You know, it was probably them. And so I always had the goal of like, I want to beat them. And then once I passed that following, I was kind of like, damn, like this is pretty cool. That like, this is just exploding. But essentially within that, I was trying to now like, okay, I have like 100,000 followers. Like I should make millions from this, right? Like a lot of people have 20,000 followers and make a lot of money. So I'm like, this is a gold mine, right? So then I started to try to make clothes. That didn't really work. I tried like a coaching program, but then again, that was just really high stress and pressure on my time as far as like ratios, like 1-to-1 coaching is just like, I'm going to run out of time. Right. And I think also the thing that I realized was, especially with my market, like there was really like my market was young adults, like under basically 16 years old, and anyone who's under 16 doesn't have a lot of money, if not like $20 to rub together. Right. So I think that was a lot of what I was facing too, is like, why are these offers not hitting? It's because my literal target market is kids. Right. So I think within that, I grew it from 100 to 147,000, just continuing to post animations. And then through that, I think this literally still irks me to this day, but I sold it, which was downright probably the stupidest business move I've ever made, and which I learned a lot from. But so I was just kind of like, I don't really want to talk about volleyball for the rest of my life. And nothing's not really like working with monetizing this account, which is wrong, right? After learning later. But yeah, so I built that up and then basically sold it for, I would argue, nothing, the value of the account, just because I was young and dumb. You know, you got to make those mistakes to learn the big lessons after. But yeah, so that was kind of the background. And then that's really what sparked kind of what I'm doing with UnJerseyed a little bit too, is that I kind of really just found my passion outside of sports, was that whole process of like marketing, content creation, like setting up branding. I think I love branding now. Like that's my biggest thing. And I learned that through building VGC. So yeah, I think it just came with a lot of skills, but then also a lot of passions of like, okay, now I'm starting to figure out like what I want to do, right? Mm-hmm. And having that business model that truly works.
Yeah. So how do you sell a social media account?
There's a lot of ways to do it. I think there's obviously the direct way where you could just email or message people and be like, hey, do you want to buy this account? A lot of what I saw was like, there's a lot of third-party platforms that will kind of act as like kind of the Amazon for Instagram accounts, where there's buyers and there's sellers. And that's really what I put it up on. I was just kind of like, just dumbly get this off my plate. Just like, I'll put it on a platform and then highest bidder takes it. But yeah, I also got some inquiries about it through like direct messaging, but that's mostly it. It's like either third-party platforms or you message someone. There's probably other ways that I just am not educated on, but that's really the main two.
All right. Yeah, I was just curious. I guess it's like technically in some kind of asset that you've built up that you can sell, especially when you have that number of followers. I mean, I have like almost 300 on Instagram. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
them are my friends and and people that I know. So
Yeah.
anyway, what yeah, so UnJerseyed, like that's kind of how we got connected a little bit, I think through Justin Tishnell and like LinkedIn. So we just met last week, by the way. Like that's the power of kind of the internet, I guess, and like being able to
Yeah.
connect the dots with different people. But
Yeah.
he had mentioned your name because of UnJerseyed, kind of
Mhm.
something similar to what I've been doing with this, like former athletes kind of figuring out what they're doing in business, things like that. So just a little bit of the background on what UnJerseyed is and maybe what the goal is from here with it. But would love to hear that.
For sure, yeah. So I think UnJerseyed, the simplest way to put it is really it's kind of like season 2 of VGC, basically. Like VGC was the whole like how to be a better athlete, educating on skills, like things like that, how to pass better, serve better, whatever it might have been. And then I think in leaving college essentially twice, I think I also learned a lot that like people have major withdrawal and identity issues and like lifestyle issues and all these different things that they face after sports because that foundation, that consistency, that kind of like schedule and regime to follow is gone essentially. So I think that's kind of the easiest way to explain it is like VGC was season 1 when you're an athlete, and then season 2 is UnJerseyed after. You know what I mean? What happens when you hang up the jersey, hang up the cleats, the shoes, whatever it might be. But yeah, so that's essentially what UnJerseyed is all about. I think a lot of what I was kind of going through with deciding what the brand would be about. I think the main consistent thing was always that UnJerseyed will be just like how I and hundreds of thousands of other former athletes are growing, and that is always a process. Like UnJerseyed really isn't about like, hey, I've hit this super successful point and you got to be like me, and like you like how success is like this end goal, right? I think UnJerseyed is truly like the continuation of like lifelong learning of how to always continue to be better and like manage the challenges and the setbacks and like the whole drop off of going from Division 1 athlete playing in front of crowds of people and everyone knows you on campus to, you know, an office job with a cubicle and no one knows you from a hole in the wall, and you have no schedule, no games to work towards, no championship to work towards anymore. Like the motivation thing, like there's so many different things to it. But UnJerseyed is really just more of like a personal development brand for former athletes that are looking to kind of not only just get back on their feet and survive, but like truly thrive and like build a life worth living. Because I think the brand is also really embodying who I've been these last 4 or 5 years, but then also who I'm trying to be at the same time. Of like with McKendry in the dorm room, and that was that commitment to start learning and growing. How can I be better about habits and routines and nutrition and how to build a business and entrepreneurship and all this stuff? And I think that's truly what it is. It's this process of continuing to learn and continuing to see how can I still even be better, and also learn how to apply the principles and the habits and the lifelong lessons that I learned through sports and actually truly pivot that into real life. Because I think a lot of people don't even realize that they learn so many tremendous things through sports and they just leave that behind when they leave their sports career behind, right? And then they wonder why they're so lost or don't know what to do after sports, you know? And I feel like I think that's kind of where I wanted to show that through the messaging and the branding is that, hey, I've seen all these lessons that I've gathered through sports. And again, it's not, here's how I did it and now I'm mega successful. It's here's how I'm currently doing it and how I'm going to continue to do it, right? And that's pivots more into the future perspective of like, here's where I'm going, right?
Yep.
And I think that's also a good refresher of like what more people need. Like a lot of people on social media are like, I'm making this a month, I'm doing this, I built that, and you got to be more like me. And not like I've been in the entrepreneurship space for a while, especially listening to these people, and I'm more like that's not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is learning the principles, right, the foundation, like how we did as an athlete, but then turning it into what works for you. You know what I mean? Like some people are bad at basketball and some people are great at basketball. For someone who's great at basketball to be like, you got to play like me, well, that's unfair because you have different traits, different characteristics, different things, right? And I think that's also what UnJerseyed is about, is that third kind of thing of it's not only the process of taking what you were as an athlete and applying it, and then that second thing of how to cast that vision to build something in the future, but it's also the third thing of you have the freedom to do it your way. You know what I mean? Like, just like how you could pick your number on the court, you can pick your number after your sports career is over. You know, you can pick your position, your job, right? You can choose to be an entrepreneur. You can choose to work a 9 to 5. There's no shame in either side, right? Or there's no positives to either side. It's really up to you. So I think it's also that I want to also embody that little bit of freedom of like, you can literally build your life however you want to, but these are the principles and the foundations that all athletes should take on to that next chapter and that next season.
Yeah, sure. So how are you doing that then? Because this is what, like, I've in doing the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm just curious how you plan on going about it, because I've come across a number of companies who are literally matching kids with jobs. Like everything that you just said, they're like, yes, athletes have all these tools. Same thing with military veterans. Like, you come from a team, you come from, all these principles that you learn. And some of them are connecting with jobs. Some of them are connecting them with communities, like just these tangible things. So do you have anything in mind for that? Like, I'm just curious, because I haven't had anything for this yet. It's really just a podcast, and there's a newsletter, and it's like, hey, if somebody comes across it and they want to, and they're an athlete or something, and it's a clip can help them maybe get the wheels turning, but there's no business behind it yet. So I'm like, for you from that standpoint, like something tangible that somebody can come. It doesn't have to be a service or anything necessarily, but I'm just curious if that's how you're thinking about it. Not that it even has to be, but I'm just wondering.
I think what I was saying earlier with selling VGC taught me a lot of major lessons, and I think, like, my girlfriend brought up a good point last night. We were actually talking about it because I was like literally rubbing my head about how stupid I was to sell that account, right? And I can wallow in it and be like, why did I sell it? I should have kept it. I should have done this. I should have done that. And then she kind of took me out of it. She's like, well, you don't know what you should have done unless you let it go and got rid of it. You know what I mean? And I think that's a lot of, as an athlete, like, you learn more from your failures and your losses than when you won, right? And I think that even pro athletes attest to that. They're always like, oh, I remember that time I lost. And then you ask them about that championship they won. They're like, yeah, it was cool. Like, it doesn't really mean that much. It's just an award, right? Yeah. So I think a lot of lessons I really gathered from selling VGC and kind of transitioning to what I'm doing now. I think the basis of it, I honestly plan to do the same thing as far as like marketing and branding. I think I did that really well and that worked, right? Because I obviously got that following size. But I think it's really more of just putting out content, putting out the messaging, putting out the branding and the word UnJerseyed out to people to first kind of gain that traction, that foundation of like, you need people to sell to if you want to sell something in the future, right? And I think really what I've done differently from VGC, which I maybe should have done the first time, was before I started anything, before I even put the word UnJerseyed out into the public on LinkedIn or whatever it was, I started on LinkedIn, was I basically took a couple of my other former athletes / teammates and just other people I was reaching out to on LinkedIn, and I made them fill out a survey. And I think this is essentially what I should have done. And I think a good point of just anyone that's trying to maybe start something, of this idea in your head of, I want to build this, right? Like, what you want to build and what there's an actual need for and what can actually work are most of the time completely different, right? Like, I think that's, like I said with VGC, I was like, oh, everyone would love clothes. I put out clothes, and the only person that bought something was like my family. You know what I mean? So I think it's that dilemma of like, if I want this thing, doesn't that mean everyone else wants that thing? Most of the time, not really, or not in the same way that you picture it, right? So I think what I've been doing, what I started with was I had this survey I put together of just like, I think it was like 15 or something different questions, just asking my target market, hey, what do you want the branding to be? Like, what do you want our messaging to talk about? What do you want? Like, if I were to launch a product, what would you want? If I were to launch a service, what would you want, right? Like, would you come to in-person events? Would you come to online events? Like, everything, like even down to the very much of like, what would you want to hear from this brand, right? Like, would you want personal development? Would you want career advice, money advice, whatever it might be, right? And so through that, I think I got like 20-ish people filled it out or something. It wasn't like a huge test size, but a lot of what I did through that process is understand, okay, I have these ideas and this vision of what I want it to be, but here's the needs of the market that I need to address through doing that, right? And so a lot of it, and it was cool because a lot of the stuff that came back to me were all similar across 20 people. Like I got people who played JUCO football, and I got people who played D1 basketball on completely opposite sides of the country, and they were saying the same thing, right? Of they want networking opportunities, like you said, they want networking opportunities with people who can build their career, but also just former athletes and like friends. Like finding people like us after college is like a tough process. You know what I mean? Like not a lot of people can really emulate or relate to this, like want to be great and want to like make sacrifices and build something great or whatever it might be. And that's what a lot of people told me on the survey too, is like, how do I find these people? How do I grow my own mindset? How do I get this lifestyle back of working out and working towards a goal and things like that? So it was cool to get that down of like, okay, this is what the people want, and now I can build what I want essentially around that, right? So that's initially what I started with. And I didn't do that with VGC, but I think now the phase that I'm in now is just like this podcasts, short form content, interviews of my own, right? Like the newsletter, like you said, just getting that word out and having it grow organically, right? Like VGC was entirely organic. I didn't run a single ad. I didn't do a single referral, partner, sponsorship, which I should have done, but I didn't do any of that stuff. And it grew to that number in less than a year, just from me talking to a camera, right? For every day. And I think it was also the consistency of posting every single day, like everyone says. But yeah, so I think that's the phase that we're in now, is just, hey, people obviously resonate with it, and people come back to me. They're like, hey, this is a great idea. You should run with this. And like people who I don't know from a hole in the wall. So I'm like, that's also a good sign that like people would want this, right? So I think I also told you this on our own personal call last week, of like just getting the message out, building the people, letting people know what it's about, right? Making sure that they understand the branding and the messaging and things like that. And then from there, I think I really see it as like a fork in the road of like, either A, you can build your own products and services, or B, just monetize other people's, right? And that comes from sponsors, partnerships, whatever it might be. So I think the main goal with it right now is just getting out the message, getting out to people, talking to people about it, and just really like kind of with VGC of just like educating and sharing knowledge, not only of just myself, but also people like you, like other people who have their own little bits of golden nuggets that they can give to people, right? Because like you said, I think, yes, there's Indeed for finding a career. There's other platforms for finding athletes a new job or whatever it might be. And then there's like church groups. There's like different places to meet people. But I think what really matters and what I like to focus on too is like, okay, great. You put your job on Indeed. You went to this church group. You went to this. But then when you go home at night, right, where's your mindset at? Right? Like, where's your routine at? Where are your habits at? Like, are you actually building towards a goal that you like to build towards, you know? So I think it's more of that kind of like that locker room talk of like, hey, yeah, you can go out and play like that. But when you come back into your locker room, your house, your room, your own mentality, is everything in line there, you know? And are you doing what you truly feel like is right? And I think that's a part of UnJerseyed. Cause like you said, I can go build a platform that like just networks only former athletes, right? But then they don't take advantage of it because they have limiting beliefs or because of this, right? That's the main problems that I like to kind of help provide guidance on and knowledge on through my experience and through all these videos and books and things that I've learned through the brand, essentially. But so I think as a long-term vision for the back end side of it, of actual business, like you asked, I think a lot of what I would like to do is have something that is mine. Like you said, like maybe some kind of, I had talked with this other guy who kind of like I got to bounce ideas off of, and more of like maybe like a kind of like an all-in-one community of, you have networking, you have career opportunities, but then you also have in-person opportunities of like, oh, you can connect, like I'm in Miami, right? Connect with people in Miami in the community, right? So then you're meeting friends. Then there's also educational pieces of like, how to improve your mindset, how to get the right nutrition plan, like how to get back on track of casting a massive vision for yourself and actually making sure you're getting closer to that goal every day, right? All of that on one platform, I think is something that is just an idea right now. Obviously, it could change and it could turn into something entirely different, or just tweak a couple things and people would love that, right? And I think that's more of something to test later down the road. And something else I would also like to do is, like you said, the sponsorships and partnerships. Like I would really love to partner with companies that I either love personally or I love what they are selling, right? And I know it can help people. Like I love personally like taking like creatine pills. Like a lot of people do like the powder and it like doesn't really like mix in and it's like all sandy and it sucks, right? So it's like if some creatine pill company was like, hey, we can sell this to your people, I would love that because I embody it and I like that. And I think that's a lot of what people in like the NIL space are trying to do now of like get with brands and businesses and products that you either A, love yourself or even use yourself, right? Like I'm not going to stand here and be like, hey, you guys got to go buy this new winter parka set from whoever, like, who I don't even know like any winter brands, but like I'm not gonna say that. And I live in Miami, and I never wear pants ever. Like it's just shorts and a t-shirt every day, right? So I think it's aligning there, but I would also like to kind of bring a lot of my own kind of like goals. Like I think a goal of mine is like to partner with like Viore and make like UnJerseyed clothing because I love their clothes. Like they fit me very nicely, and I think I love their branding as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like things like that. I like partnering with companies, but also combining them, not just like, oh, I'm selling Viore stuff, like affiliate marketing, right? More of just like, hey, actual partnerships of like, let's get UnJerseyed and Viore on the same shirt. Let's get this and that together, you know? So, but I think that all really truly relies on like the need later on for after the market is built and the audience is built. Then like I said, it's going to be, hey, what do you guys want instead of what do I want to build, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think you're going about the right way, especially just going out there and asking people what they want. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, I've done a little bit of that through like polls on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I've done that once, I think. But yeah, so just kind of like asking people what they want and building out this community. Yeah, because there's, I feel like especially now, like I don't know, because how old are you?
22.
You're 22. Okay, so I'm 30, and
Mm-hmm.
when I got out of school, it was almost like you were gonna go get a corporate. It's like odds were you were gonna get a corporate job, right? Like that.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how it was. And now I feel like maybe this is just a feeling that I have, or because I don't talk to I don't know as many 22-year-olds, but like the ones that I've talked to, they all want to start up something of their own or like do something a little bit entrepreneurial. And I'm sure that ties into the social media aspect, just how like that I'm not going to say your generation because we're only 8 years apart, but like just being on social media and you see these different options available. It's just going to be an interesting balance, I think, over the next like decade, because a great way to build wealth is to get a corporate job and to like kind of rise to that ladder. But I don't
Yeah.
know if so many 22-year-olds want to do that necessarily. So yeah, maybe if you just want to weigh in on that. Like, is that something that you see as well with your own friends, or like what do they think?
Totally. I think of course NIL I think is a huge gateway to that of also realizing that like you being an athlete and having this platform is an asset in itself. You know, like the number you wear and your name on the back of it and the team you play for has value, right? Because like me, LIU Brooklyn volleyball player, right, compared to a Alabama football lineman, he's going to make way more because that platform, that value and the assets there. But I think, yeah, I think especially for our generation, even studies are coming out about it, and I've like seen it with people that I talk to myself of the college degree is losing more and more weight year after year. Like it's not entirely useless because obviously you need one to be a doctor or accounting or things like that, right? But I'm saying like if you want to start a business, like a business degree is really not going to get you much unless of course you go to Harvard or like you're the top 1%, right? But for the rest of us school haters down here, like it's not really going to do much, right? So I think yes, I totally agree in the fact of like social media is definitely a big part of it because these people who are 24, 3 years out of college, they're seeing someone at 21 building something massive. They're like, okay, well, why can't I do that? You know, and I think I have a lot of those moments too of like why, like it's that more, I think it's that mentality that's starting to seep in through social media is like, okay, well, why can't I do the same, right? I have a phone, I have a computer, and I have a Wi-Fi connection. Like, what's the difference between me and this guy, right? Like, really not that much. So I think, yeah, and I think, like I said, the studies are also coming out that like this is like the toughest time for people coming out of college to get jobs, right? Because I even saw it for myself, like all on Indeed is like entry level positions, and you're reading through it and it's like, oh, you need 3 years experience. Like, but then that's not a entry position. Then that's like a transitioning position. So I think a lot of that is obviously very concerning to people who are like, oh, this degree is going to get me this job. And now they're out and they're like, okay, well, now the job market has changed. But yeah, I think I totally agree. And I think especially just being athletes, like you're trained to work every day to get a little bit better towards a common goal, right? Like towards whether it's the conference, whether it's your division or just like a club championship, whatever it might be. And I think that just naturally, innately transitions after to where you're like, okay, well, what's this next big, massive goal I can shoot for? Then you turn on your phone and it's all business entrepreneurship. You can build this, right? So I definitely agree that there's the social media aspect in that. I think just like the power of the degree is definitely starting to decline. It's not an all-time zero. There's still value to it, right? But I think you're completely right that our generation is seeing like, why would I go to the same building for 5 days a week, 9 to 5, sit in a cubicle, right? When I can be here at home and make my own office, right? Or be traveling around the world and working at the same time, right? With the capabilities of Zoom and remote work and hybrid stuff and all this, So I think it's just social media is giving that avenue, and also that I would say kind of like notifying people that like, hey, this is possible. Like you didn't have phones in whatever, the 2000s or really like the 90s more, that like we're truly showing what the people who are building stuff do, right? But now like podcasts, like someone who's building something, whether you've made the millions or not, you can just turn on your phone and be like, hey, I'm doing this, and inspire one person, and then that person is like, why do I need this degree if I can just go build it? And like I also talk to a lot of like successful people down here, and they're like, yeah, I dropped out of high school and they have like $100 million valuation company. I'm like, okay, so something's missing here, right? That like, do you need it? No. Does it help in some regards? For sure. But if you're trying to start a business, CEOs don't tell people what is on their resume. They run the show. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, you're also in Miami too, so I'm sure there's like every third person you run into could be a crypto millionaire or something like that. But anyway, it is just kind of the mindset that you're saying. It's like, yeah, it is possible. So, for sure. All right, Chris. I think that's a good place to wrap up, man. So I appreciate you coming on here and just the fact that we were connecting and everything, man. And anyway, I can support you and what you're doing too. Would absolutely love to. So maybe just give a quick shout out to where folks can find you or UnJerseyed and kind of follow along. Totally. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on. I love kind of sharing and also gaining some value from you and like getting to kind of share my perspective for sure. But so you can find, I'm kind of, like I said, I'm really starting over. So this is kind of like that starting position, but I think really the value to anyone who gets in at the start really can see a lot of value and also give me a lot of feedback as far as like what to do better. But I think the longer you're with a brand, the more that the brand notices you for your impact, right? And that you were there from the start. And a lot of my ideas are going to be for people who like start following me first, or like I call them like the founders. Like that's the people who filled out the survey. Is like those are the first people I'm going to run products by, services by, ideas by, right? So I think having more people to be a part of that would be awesome. But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure my name is just like the Christopher Knowles if you look it up, or you can honestly look up UnJerseyed on LinkedIn and my stuff will probably come up. I have an Instagram page called UnJerseyed. On X, it's UnJerseyed again. And then YouTube. I literally just put out my first YouTube video this past Saturday, like a couple of days ago. So yeah, so on YouTube, it's really just UnJerseyed anywhere. If you look it up, my stuff will probably pop up. Cool. All right. Go check it out, everybody. So, all right, Chris. Thanks again, man. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yep.